Now, one of the things that I wanted to go through with you guys and with Dr. Vona is that is uh, the four suspects, the alternate perpetrators from the defense side. Now, Judge Hippler's already basically shut down this and said no, it's been denied. They're not going to be allowed to bring in or name anybody by name. Now, during their cross examinations with officers, they're going to be able to bring up certain things. Like, for instance, I'm sure they're going to bring up the DNA on the handrail on the first floor and why they didn't, go through the process of an IgG for that DNA. Now, I'm sure there's a pretty reasonable explanation for it. The explanation that I'm assuming is based on the documents that I read was it was either too small or contaminated of some sort, or perhaps it was mixed with so much other DNA that you couldn't decide or decipher or split it apart. So I think there was something wrong with it, and that's the whole reason why they couldn't do an IgG. But more so, and I've said this before, I said, if you look at the pictures of the house and you look inside the windows through those pictures, you see reminiscence of a party, and there wasn't a party there that night. People from the neighborhood had brought up that it was an awfully quiet night, and so there was no party there that night. There was a party the night before. And so we can basically deduce that there wasn't much of a cleanup from the time that they had the party the night before to the time that the murders happened, because you can see the red Solo cups, the beer bottles, the beer cans, food. There's what looks like a party was there over the weekend. And so now you have to decipher between all the people that were at that party, their DNA and the DNA and what DNA the intruder may have left behind. And I think that's pretty difficult to do, especially in a situation like that. There's not like there's cameras inside the house where you can, go through and say, all right, on a check piece, say, all right, or a checkboard. This guy came in, that guy came in, check. We can identify all these people. It's not a club like that where there's cameras. And so, yes, everybody has a camera on their phone and a lot of pictures were taken, but that doesn't mean that you're going to capture everybody there. Now, and point example is, Dateline with this swimming pool thing with Bryan Kohberger. They said that was the first time after that pool party that Bryan Kohberger goes out to the 1122 King Road residence or is passing by within 100 meters after the hours of 10 a.m. or 10 p.m., between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. Dayline has spoken to numerous people. They have videos, they have pictures, they have a lot of things, and nobody remembers seeing any of the victims at this party. Doesn't mean that they weren't there, it's just they weren't captured. And so is it possible that they were there? Maybe they were. I don't think so. I think that somebody would have spotted them in the background of a photo or something. But that's still kind of different than an enclosed house where there's multiple rooms and things of that nature. So versus being outside in the open where everybody's in the same plane, so to speak, where you can see everybody, nobody's behind a wall or those type of things for at least not a long period of time. Somebody could go to the restroom, obviously, and those type of things. But, you for the most part, you have an open area and that you can kind of see in the background who's there. In the house, it's not the case. And so even if you had some pictures of people at that house that night, it's probably a small fraction of the amount of people that were actually there. So then you got to focus in on what you have. And what you have is that the killer brought in, the killer used a K-bar knife or a large fixed blade knife, and the intruder left behind a knife sheath. So you really want to focus in on that piece of evidence, because if the intruder brought that in, then you can say, all right, and then there's a good opportunity that this piece of evidence wasn't here the night before, that's getting contaminated by the X amount of visitors or people that were at the party the night before. So that's why, in my opinion, they don't really look at that DNA. But let's look at, I want to read first what it is that Judge Hippler says, and then we'll talk and kind of break down who these alternate perpetrators could have been. All right. So this goes on to say, while perhaps the evidence could suggest an opportunity to commit the crime, which no doubt is an opportunity shared by dozens of others in the victim's social circles, there is no compelling evidence that any of them had any motive to kill the victims, much less physically harm them, or means to do so. Further, there is no evidence connecting them to the crime scene. Each have been cooperative with law enforcement, providing DNA samples, fingerprints, and allowing of searches as requested. Notably, lab testing has excluded their DNA from samples taken from the crime scene of and the victims. All right, so that's the first part of this. So I just wanted to read that out there so that everybody understands that no matter who we bring up today as who the defense may have thought as a perpetrator or wanted to use as a perpetrator, there is no evidence connecting them to the crime scene or to the crime, no motive, no means, nothing. So just wanted to bring that up. All right, so let's start off here. So it says here the evidence the defendant has offered purporting to establish the 4 individuals of an alternate perpetrator objectively fails to meet Meister's standard. Namely, the evidence is entirely irrelevant. Nothing links these individuals to the homicides or otherwise gives a rise of reasonable inference that they committed the crime. Indeed, it would take nothing short of rank speculation by the jury to make such a finding. So first and foremost, we know that there's 4 individuals. We'll keep that in mind. 3 of the individuals were each socially connected to one or more of the victims, interacted with one or more of the victims at social events in the hours prior to the homicides, and lived within walking distance of the crime scene and were familiar with the layout of the victim's home from prior social events. So that kind of says a lot. That says a lot about the 3 individuals that maybe will help us deduce who these individuals are. Now, without further ado, I think I see Dr. Vona back there. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. I don't know if you can hear me. You might be frozen. If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up, Dr. Vona, and I'll bring you on. All righty. And welcome to the stage. Happy birthday, Dr. Vona, first and foremost. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry,
You're
I'm
welcome.
a few minutes late.
It's okay. It's okay. We got some things out of the way. How's your day been?
Pretty good so far. It's rainy down the shore, but it's okay. Tomorrow it'll be nice, so I'll go in the pool tomorrow.
There you go. There you go. So were you surprised, Doctor, by the denial of the alternate perpetrators?
No, I wasn't surprised at all because I think that it's important that if you are going to have something like alternate people that, you like I've said before, you could ruin somebody's livelihood. So I think that the judge not only did a favor there, but also, like he said, that doesn't mean that Kohberger wasn't there.
True. That is true. Now,
how do you feel about it? Do you think the same?
Yeah. I think that if you're going to name somebody, you better have some strong evidence. They didn't just name Bryan Kohberger just to name Bryan Kohberger. They had some pretty strong evidence. You know what I'm saying?
1,000%.
And so how strong are you with the case? Do you think you can deduce who these 4 possible what's going on with my computer? Oh, dang it. I had an update. All right, there it is. my computer just went all crazy on me. Are you strong? Do you think you're strong enough to know the ins and outs of the case to try to deduce who may have been involved here? Or not involved, but who they're pointing towards?
Oh, who are they? Do we know, or did they just say that there's 4 people?
They said there's 4 people. They've given a little bit of clues of who these 4 people are.
Do you think they're going to try to blame the fraternity or something?
Maybe. I mean, well, one, they're not going to be allowed to. So, the first thing that I had read was the fact that the judge stated there is no evidence of anybody else, no opportunity for anybody else. I mean, there's just the opportunity for people. And that's one of the things that Bryan Kohberger was referencing was that, or his defense team was that basically all they did was point at opportunity. You had people that lived close, people that knew them, people that were with them in the hours before. That's the only thing that they brought to the table was opportunity.
And so, that's not cool if they're going to ruin somebody's livelihood over that.
I agree. I agree. So I wanted to go kind of through this. It says 3 of the individuals. So there's 4 of them, and 3 of them were socially connected to 1 or more of the victims. So social media, I'm assuming friendly, those type of things, with at least 1 or more of the victims. And they also interacted with them at social events in the hours prior to the homicide. So what do we know
Jack?
where the victims were?
You think they're doing Jack over here?
Yes, Jack's one of them. I definitely think Jack is one. But Adam is 2. That is who I think as well. And the third one, a lot of, so let me throw in the last part of this. And finally, they lived within, or 2 more things. They lived within walking distance of the crime scene, and they were familiar with the layout of the victim's house from prior social events. So you mentioned, for instance, the fraternity. Now, Sigma Chi has been one that has been rumored for a while that there was something that happened. Now, I asked Steve, and Steve said that he has heard absolutely 0 about anything happening at Sigma Chi that involved Ethan or anybody else like that. So that's the first thing. 2, the only connection to the house from Sigma Chi was Ethan. And so I don't know if these other guys that may have had problems with Ethan, like that's the rumor, that's the theory, that they had problems with Ethan. Do you think the people that had problems with Ethan would be invited to that house?
No, and not only that, I don't think that that Ethan's siblings would have continued. Like, I don't think his sister would have had anything to do with the fraternity, let alone be the what's it called? The, like, when they nominate the female.
Oh yeah, I'm not familiar with.
Like, I don't think that they would even. Yeah, I just don't think that they would even be involved if they, like, with the fraternity anymore, if they even had an inkling to think that anybody would be capable of such a thing. So I just think that that's barking up the wrong tree there. Everybody's saying hoodie guy, so I think, is he one of them?
Jack Showalter, I would assume yes. I think those are the 3 guys. Oh, the 4th guy goes into saying that the 4th guy, I know who the 4th guy is. It says here, the 4th individual did not know the victims, but had a passing connection to one of them while noticing her shopping at a store approximately 5 weeks prior to the homicide. He followed her briefly out the exit to the store while considering approaching her to talk. He turned away before speaking to her. The event was captured on surveillance camera. The individual subsequently cooperated with law enforcement, providing his phone number and DNA sample, as with other alleged alternative perpetrators. Lab reports exclude his DNA from samples taken from crime scene victims and no evidence connecting him to the crime scene. So the 4th individual is a guy that was the stalker. This was the person that Kaylee had called her mom and referenced as a stalker. Now, I've talked to Christy about this situation. I've talked to Steve about the situation on 2 separate occasions, individually and separate from each other. And I've gotten the exact same story from both Christy and Steve. What they told me, and Steve told me he didn't know much about it, that Kaylee had actually called Christy during this interaction. So what had occurred was that Kaylee and Bethany went out to the Winco. Bethany was underage, so she stayed in the car. Kaylee went down to go buy some alcohol. Noticed somebody had followed her throughout the store. Maybe not throughout the store, but like when they were like registering, checking out, when she was checking out, that she noticed somebody looking at her. Followed her to the parking lot. She got kind of freaked out about it, ran to her car. I guess when she kind of ran to her car and she turned around, the guy got embarrassed and kind of turned away and kind of ducked. And so she called her mom and told her mom about it. And her mom said, we'll report it to the store. And I don't know if anything actually was reported to the store at that time, but because she called her mom, they have a phone record and they have a timestamp and they have a date. So they were able to go back, look at the surveillance video, figure out who this person was. This guy, remember, DM has a very vague description. Taller guy, thin built, Caucasian. This guy doesn't meet those criteria.
Oh, wow. And I think they said that they were able to track that guy down, the police. And yeah. I think he was just literally trying to ask her if she was in, like, so, and I think she just got creeped out by it. So, and I try to remember that the kids in this like newer generation, a lot of them, I could see why they would be freaked out if somebody, I feel like in our generation, you walked up to people and you were like, hey, but I feel like in the new, so I could see why Kaylee might be like, oh my gosh, I think this guy's following me. At the same time, I could see why he'd be embarrassed because he might be like, oh no, she probably thinks I'm like a creep and he was just trying to ask her out.
Yeah.
So that was probably just an innocent exchange, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, I agree. And plus, Kaylee was big into true crime. You know, she looked at true crime, she followed true crime. And so, you know, hearing stories about young ladies being followed at night in a parking lot, that doesn't sound like a good scenario. You know what I'm saying?
No, and it's funny you say that because I grew up listening to like Nancy Grace, and I would have for the longest time I was having nightmares and I couldn't figure out why. And then my
Mhm.
husband was like, duh, like, because you watch crime stories when you go to bed. And I'm like, that never occurred to me. So you're so right. I think even subconsciously, we wind up being more hyper vigilant about things that maybe we wouldn't have been before.
I agree. I agree. And so going back to the three, though, I don't think it's anybody at Sigma Chi, because if they had a problem with Ethan, I doubt that they would have been invited into that house for parties.
Mm-mm.
You know what I'm saying? So that was the one thing that kind of stood out the most to me, was that they were familiar with the layout of the victim's home from prior social events. You know, it sounds like these people had been there at least on more than one occasion. Now, Jack DeCour was, you know, boyfriend of one of the victims. His best friend and roommate, Adam, which is the person who was with the girls and Jack DeCour at the corner club hours before the murders. He's the one that Maddie goes out and tells Kaylee, said, "What did you tell Adam?" And she said, "I told him everything." Now, what do you think that was?
I think it was Kaylee and Jack were not together at the moment, but from what we hear, they were starting to rekindle. So maybe Kaylee was just like, I don't know. I'm thinking, and this is just a guess, that because Adam lives with Jack, that maybe by telling Adam stuff, you could assume that he would go back and tell Jack. So I was thinking it was probably just something, you know, I don't know. I'm thinking that it's nothing like big. It was just like regular talk about maybe relationships, things like that. But I don't know. Do you have a different opinion about that?
So Kaylee had broken it off with Jack, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that she was going to be moving and things of that nature. She went on a date with somebody else, and this other person disrespected her. She knew that in all of her time with Jack, that Jack has never disrespected her, not even once in any form or fashion. And so it's kind of like one of those things where you don't know how good you have it until it's gone. And so when Jack was gone, Kaylee started to miss him. I mean, it sounds like first love type of thing. They've been together for a while. And what I understand is that the phone calls and the text messages were from Kaylee to Jack, basically wanting to get back together. I think one of the messages was like, "We share a dog together," you know, those type of things. And so I think that also dispels some of the motive aspect. If the motive was that Kaylee no longer wanted to be with Jack, then those voicemails and those text messages kind of destroy that argument. What do you think?
1,000%. And I think that it's also common. I know that some people like ran with that. They're like, oh, they called him all these times and then they called for Maddie's phone. And I'm like, you guys, like, you don't remember being 21, going to the bar. You know what I mean? Having, you know, my friends would get drunk often and do drunk phone calls. And I'd have to be like, all right, you guys, like, enough. Like, let's leave them alone. But again, so I don't think that was out of like the pocket behavior for a 21-year-old that just was at the bar drinking all night with him there. So, you know, so I thought that I never saw that as abnormal behavior to begin with. And at the same time, I think you're exactly right. Why would you call somebody so many times and say things like, hey, just pick up, we even share a dog together, like what's happening? If you were, you know, trying not to talk to them. So I agree with that. And then why would she call or have Maddie call? Do you know what I mean? So maybe she thought like, is he just not picking up for me? So I think that it was good that Maddie called and he didn't pick up, because then I guess Kaylee could see for herself that it had nothing to do with them calling and that it was just probably that he was passed out.
It could, that very well could have been the reason, or maybe perhaps he was hoping a different ringtone or something, or she was hoping a different ringtone might wake him up.
Yeah,
sounds
that's
like
what
he
I
was
was
asleep.
Thinking. Yeah.
Sounds like he was asleep. Now, Adam and Jack DeCour and the third individual, and I'm only assuming, I have no idea. This is my deduction of the information, right? There was a lot of other people at the corner club. There was a lot of other people at Sigma Chi. I mean, for all I know, Xana could have had a friend who lived in walking distance, who met up with her at Sigma Chi, and we just don't know who that person is. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of people that are unknown to us right now. Jack is one that I would have thought for sure they were going to look at because ex-boyfriend, recently broken up, lived down the street, was with the victims the night of the murders, was consuming alcohol, those type of things. Those things could make you be somebody to be a person of interest very early on. A lot of people would have looked in that direction. But the evidence became clear. They looked at their phones. They looked at the movement in their phones. Apparently, Jack had his phone like on his bed or under his pillow. And when he sleeps, that movement in the bed, that's recorded on your phone. That slight movement, crazy. That is crazy. And there's slight movement and things like that, throughout the night. It's consistent. And so with him being asleep.
Thank God goodness that they were able to like deduce and do that too, because I couldn't imagine being Jack and thinking like, oh my God, does her family think that I had anything to do with this? So by seeing the movements and stuff, it probably gives him peace of mind thinking like, look, you don't even have to take my word for it. Like my phone showing that I was in my bed, because it's picking up on my movements. So if you just had your phone in the bed and you weren't in there, it wouldn't pick up on movements. So you would have to have somebody in the bed, I would assume.
Yeah. No, you're right. And so those things are what was also there's a camera from 1112 that kind of points in the direction of King Queen intersection. Now, obviously, somebody could have ran through the backyards, but there was snow back there. Now, I know a lot of people are going to look at the video from early on, and I'll see if I can find, because I know I have it somewhere, but I do have the drone footage. And on the drone footage, yeah, there's no snow in the front yard. Now, you live up in the in Pennsylvania and stuff. Isn't it true that in certain areas, especially along the side of a hill, like even like if it's in the shade, snow will stay there longer versus where the sun is hitting, even if the temperature is relatively warmer than 32 degrees?
1,000%. And if it was snowing prior and they shoveled anything, if you shovel snow, like that snow pile is going to last longer, even if the sun is hitting it, because the snow's in, one pile. So I don't think that it's strange that there's snow in the back and not snow in the front. However, I do think that, now that you say that, do you think that there would have been more feet print evidence or anything? Because there was snow out back and we think that he went in through the back. Because I never really thought about that.
Well, there was pictures of footprints in the backyard. And there was pictures of evidence markers next to footprints. Now
that you said it,
whose footprints those could be, I don't know. I mean, we saw a lot of 911 calls, and this may have been another reason why this house was chosen. Saw a lot of 911 calls of people outside in the backyard. And so, one of the reasons he may have chosen this house was because of the amount of people that are there to hide his tracks, so to speak. And so,
in my opinion, I think he's one of the people that were calling the police on them, because I thought about it and I'm like, aren't most of these houses not owned, but occupied by other college goers? So I just can't imagine another 21-year-old calling the police on their friends. And I'm sure there are other people that live there, but I would assume that having, people over is something that they've gotten used to. I almost feel like Buzzkill Bryan made some of those reports just to see how long it would take for the police to get there. Like to see what the response time would be.
I wouldn't be surprised. The one that I looked at was the one during the day, and I was able to find out that was a woman that called. So the one during the day wasn't him. Okay. Yeah, but the others, the ones at night, those were missing from the blotter. Now, why would those be missing? A lot of stuff in this case is sealed. So if things are sealed and things are missing. Sealed. I mean, why is it missing?
Could you imagine if we find that out, right? That he was really Buzzkill Bryan? I was just kidding. He probably was, though.
Yeah, because I looked at the police blotter and I went through all of them. And the one for September, the one at night, the one where it's not the first one, the very first one where Maddie gets on the phone. The second one where Xana comes out and it says, "I'm sorry," or whatever. And he said, "Go to sleep." That one is that entire day is missing from the crime blotter.
That's so shady.
It is weird.
Unless it's under seal, and that's why we don't see it there. But Other than that, someone said new doc dropped. Is that what we're looking at?
I don't know. Let me see. I don't see one.
So maybe it's the one that you just had up.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll double check again here in a minute.
Yeah, I was just making sure it's name is something.
So, I mean, obviously, it could have been anybody. To me, that fact that it was missing, and so much of this case has been sealed. You know, that's just me trying to put 2 and 2 together. There, you know what I'm saying?
1,000%.
Yeah, and as far as the video of the vehicle in the trees, so Dateline had posted up that Bryan Kohberger was looking up something on Ted Bundy, and then about an hour later, there's a picture posted up on social media, and it's on August 16th, and it's all of the girls in the backyard, and then a 911 call comes in. So, to me, I thought that was Dateline alluding that maybe Bryan Kohberger called 911 because it was kind of lining it up that way. But now what I'm thinking is that he saw it and he wanted to drive out there, park in the back to position himself to see the backyard where the girls had taken the picture. And it just so happened somebody else called 911 and they captured him in the back.
Okay. Do you really think that that's that coincidental that he was just happened to be there?
Well, it's not so much that he just happened to be there.
That's the one where they found out that the woman. That's the one where they found out.
Yeah, that's the one with the woman. Yeah, this is the one with the woman.
So that would be the only way would be if it was a coincidence that he happened to be there at the same time.
But it's not so much a coincidence. The reason he was there is because they posted up a picture just a few minutes earlier, like about 20 minutes before.
Right. So, I meant the fact that he was in the background and got like.
Right.
Oh, well, but you're saying he might have even known.
I don't think he knew about the 911 call. I think he saw the picture and then said, I'm going to go check it out. And when he gets there, it's somebody else called 911 catching his ass. Excuse my language. I don't mean to say that, but you get what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I don't think he had any idea that police were going to be called. But
okay, that's what I was wondering.
Right. But curiosity killed the cat, right? That's the saying. He stayed there to see what was going to happen. Now his interests are outside. And so the car doesn't move. Now, I know some folks said that they've looked at other pictures of cars or whatever, and that it looks like some of the other pictures. I pulled it up. There are some white vehicles that do park back there, but they are not consistent with the vehicle in the. I'll see if I can find it. If not on this show, on your show, before we start there.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it. But and I also told everybody that after this show, we're going to go to your show, and I promise to reveal a little bit more about the information that I have. So,
that was so kind of you.
Yes. So if you guys want to know what that is, you're going to have to go check out Dr. Vona's channel. All right. So the third, so I would honestly think Jack's best friend, Adam, lives with him. That's in walking distance. He was at the corner club. That would be number 2 as far as alternate perpetrators. So you have the stalker, and I put that in quotations, from Winco. You have Jack. Now you have Adam. Now the third person, again, there could be a whole lot of other people that I have no idea that was at Sigma Chi, that could have lived in walking distance, that could have gone to parties at that house. That's a huge possibility. Huge possibility. You know, I often say, don't get caught up in thinking that this is a TV show and that there's a cast and that only the people that you know are part of the cast and nobody else exists. That's far from it. So there's a high possibility that the third person could be somebody else. But
you don't think they would try to bring like Kohberger or something into this, do you? Because that would be horrifying if they did.
I don't think so, because Kohberger, he's much older, for one.
Okay.
2, he wasn't a student at the University of Idaho, and I don't think he was familiar with any of the victims. There's no connection between his social media and any of the victims or anything like that.
The only reason I said that was because when they were driving home and they brought that up or whatever to the cop. So I know that he knows about that incident. So I just didn't know if you thought maybe that could be somebody that he said to look into or blame, especially because he wasn't here to defend himself. I'm glad that the judge just put a stop to whoever it was, though. Yeah.
Yeah. And also not in walking distance for Kohberger. And
that's true.
Yeah, he lived in Pullman. So good point. Good point. We have Kel who said that. Thank you.
Good
and
point.
So the fourth person Now, there was a video or an image that was released a while ago of inside of the corner club. I know I have it somewhere. I have like thousands of pictures. I just got to go find them. But in this picture, you'll see Jack Decor. Me and the guys broke it down. I was like, that's Jack. 100% ended up being true. So you see Jack, you see Kaylee, you see Maddie, you see Adam in the corner. You don't see Showalter. You don't see Hoodie Guy. So what does that tell you? That tells me that they knew him from prior events to be walking with him if they weren't with him at the bar. Does that make sense?
1,000%. And but didn't they? I think they also like they were able to say that they knew each other anyway, because wasn't he like part of one of the fraternities? I don't know if it's the same one that the guys belong to, but I thought that he, and again, tell me if I'm wrong, but didn't he get like kicked out of it or something for putting
that was a rumor.
That was a rumor. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a rumor. I don't know any truth behind that, but the rumor was something about a fraternity. But yeah, he may have been a fraternity. I don't know. I don't know.
What about Enon Harsh?
Enon Harsh was a neighbor guy who
like, do you think that could be
lived
one of
in
the
walking? Maybe, let's see. He lived in walking distance, but I don't know if he had a social connection to him. He said he never went into their house. He said that
he said that he like offered them wine and Kaylee
outside.
took it. I'm like, that's such bullshit.
Right. But that was outside. This claims that these three individuals are familiar with the layout of the house on the inside because of prior social events. Enon Harsh said he never went in that house.
That's true. It has to be Jack, and Adam, in my opinion.
I think so. Now, I found out that Jack Showalter does live within walking distance. So he does live within walking distance. He was with the girls, walking to the grub truck. I didn't see him in the corner club, but you know what? I think I did see him in the corner club, but he wasn't with them. He was off to the side. So to me, that tells me, because the girls were talking with Jack, and Jack had Kaylee's attention and stuff. So that tells me that he must have, known them before. And the way they were talking and stuff, it didn't sound like he was because I think there was at one point Maddie goes F you, like as a joke to him. That's something that you kind of do from with a familiar person.
I was gonna say I do that at least once a day.
Yeah. Well, I would hope it's not with a total stranger.
No, to people I love, I meant. Yes. So I agree with you. Right. I agree with you. I didn't find that either to be. Somebody in the comments did ask about, what do you think that he meant when he said they're going to get you for this?
I don't think that's what he said.
Okay. There you go. So what do you think he said?
Did you ditch those guys?
Oh.
Which, yeah, I mean, I get it. Some people are going to say, oh my God, they ditched somebody. Okay. Let's just say that they ditched somebody. Let's just say somebody bought them some beers or some drinks, and they took off without saying goodbye. One, they're not listed in this as suspects from Kohberger's side. So you're climbing up a tree that Bryan Kohberger's defense team isn't even climbing up.
Yeah, that's true.
There's no evidence of anybody, that is in their inner circle that they were with that night have gone into their house, much less some people that don't know them like that. Now, Bryan Kohberger, he doesn't know them like that, but there's evidence of him being there. There's a video of his vehicle traveling around at an odd specific time. It's going into a one-way in, one-way out area. The only way you go in, you can circle around the apartment complex, but you can't drive out of there through some other place. You have to go in and out through there. And the time in which that the murders are occurring is exactly the time in which the vehicle had pulled in, was not seen on video, and then when they believe that it was over, that vehicle was seen traveling at a high rate of speed. There was an item left behind by the intruder with Bryan Kohberger's DNA on it, and somebody inside saw the person, the intruder, and their vague but still description of that person cannot exclude Bryan Kohberger, who also admitted that he was out and about that night by himself in his car, didn't lend it to anybody else, wasn't with anybody else in his car. And he had his phone off, which was manually turned off, proven via documents that it wasn't out of service. It wasn't on a dead battery. He manually turned it off during that specific time. So there's quite a bit of evidence to say that Bryan Kohberger did this versus the contrary. Does that make sense?
I think that, again, if somebody shows me evidence to show something different, I am mature enough to, think critically and be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But I haven't seen anything. I'm like, show me the evidence. Like, and the only evidence I feel like people try to say is there's no way he could have done this by himself. And I'm like, if I were like, if we put on his hat, that would be like offensive to him. So I feel like they think that they're picking up for him, but I feel like he would almost be offended by that. Like, what do you mean that one person can't do this, or I'm not capable of this? He's better than everybody, right? In his head.
I mean, how slow do they think he moves?
I don't know.
Like, they're like, oh my God, he only had 11 minutes. I'm like, the dude runs a mile in almost half of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know how much a lot of people can do in the same amount of time that they can run a mile? Like, all right, let's take Bryan Kohberger out of it. And let's talk about those people that think he can't do it. They probably run a mile in 20 minutes. And so
That's true.
how much can you do in 20 minutes? I mean, you got to put it into perspective, because what he can do in 6 minutes is a lot more than what most people can do in 6 minutes, because of his physique and his training that he's claimed that he's had, and obviously has had. I mean, he's got a running thing that tracked him while he was in Pullman.
I was going to say, I was trying not to. Yes, I was trying to turn her up, but I'm like, he even has like proof that he can run that fast because he tracked himself on that app, Strava.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And Betsy brings up easy to do by himself guy, and Bondi took out 6, wounded 12 in 3 minutes in a mall. Yeah. In fact, I think the total amount was he's ended up stabbing 16 people, 6 died. And it was in a matter of like 15 minutes, but like 12 of that was him running from the cops. None of his victims were asleep. None of his victims were intoxicated. And this didn't happen at 4 a.m. So, like, I don't understand. I mean, if we did an experiment and you walk from, because the place isn't big, if you were to walk 30 yards, how much time would that take you to walk 30 yards? It shouldn't take you very long. I don't understand why people.
I'm glad you said that. I was going to say to people, challenge yourself and go to one corner of a room and see how long, like put a stopwatch and see how many, it only takes a few seconds to get across the room.
Exactly. I mean, even like, for instance, like in prison, people get shanked just passing by, and like 4 people will die. Boom, 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 boom. It happens in a blink of an eye.
Especially if you've been fantasizing it and it's been going over, and whether, Bryan did it or whatever, whoever did this definitely was fantasizing about it. I think it was Bryan, I'm just saying. But by fantasizing about this, and then didn't they say that the neighbor said that he was very loud in the middle of the night? So he could have been practicing, like keeping his stamina up. Yeah. So like that would all like almost like training for that, or like, or at least going over the motions in his head of like what would happen with this or that, because let's be honest, he did due diligence as far as not leaving evidence behind. I mean, there was, but I'm just saying like he got most of it. So he had to have gone through it somewhere in his mind to think how he could do this without leaving evidence.
Yeah, I think he did. I mean, he definitely went through a lot of thought, whoever committed this crime. I mean, the fact that they left the doors open and only touched him once tells you that they went through a lot of thought, a lot of forethought, a lot of thought to say, hey, if I touch this door more than once, that's multiple times that I can leave DNA behind. On the way out, especially, that's not something that happens during the moment of opportunity crimes. Those are things that happen in thought out, well planned out plans. So real quick, I want to say thank you to PJ for becoming the newest member. Also want to say Arizona Gal 89. Thank you so much. Sending love from Tucson, Arizona. Daniel, you rock. I appreciate that. MRI Rue comes in with a 199 super sticker. Thank you. Pat Newcomer comes in with another super sticker. Thank you so much. And then $5 from Sarah Adams. Defense seems pretty desperate. I would say so. What did you think about the way Hitler kind of talked to the defense in a lot of what he was saying? Did you have a chance to read it?
Yeah, well, he's what they needed, or he's what the case needed. I feel like the other judge was too lackadaisical and stuff. I feel like Hitler's like, look, I took everything into consideration, but enough's enough. This is what we're doing, and that's it. I like that he lays down the law and that he doesn't let Anne take advantage of him in any way, because I have to be honest, I could see how she could get over on people. She's very pushy and charismatic, and not in a bad way, like in a way that you should be if you're a defense attorney. So I could see like, and she just keeps fighting and fighting and fighting. But I think that he does a good job at seeing through things and just being like, no. But I think it's also good that he doesn't just rule right there all the time, and that he does take time to think about it or to get counsel from other people. That way, that it was well thought out.
Yeah. She's kind of gotten old on me,
Me
to
too.
me, like she's lost credibility to a certain extent, because there's so many times where she's like somebody will say something like, we're going to talk about that. Let's get to that. And then nothing happens. I'm like, oh, dang, they got something. And then nothing happens. Now I know the jury.
She talked about the one thing about the feds or whatever. And she gave like one of the things to like back her, what she was going to say. And then the judge asked her about it. And she's like, well, I'm not a professional at those cases. And I'm like, but then why'd you bring it up? So I feel like he did a good job of like calling her out and like calling her bluff. That's what I'm trying to say. And she didn't have anything for him. She's like, well, I'm not like, an expert at those cases. I'm like, well, then why'd you put it as your argument?
That's true. I forgot about that.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah.
To me, I thought he was just calling her out. To me, it's been stall tactic after stall tactic from the defense. And he called it out for what it was. He said, this all seems like something for a continual delay with no end in sight. You haven't given us any reason to believe or any date as far as how long you want this to go. The fact that they were able to change the venue got them a continuance. This trial should have started by now, but because they changed it to Ada County, now that's the case. Now, one of the things he puts into is like one of the options that he has, when somebody says that there's too much publicity, is to change the venue. Where else are you going to change it in Idaho that has more people than Boise?
You're not. At this point, it's like justice delayed is justice denied.
I agree. And that's, and do you think an innocent person, what kind of stall tactic would be in favor of an innocent person?
None. I would be stomping and punching and screaming to anybody that would listen to me, and I would not want to spend an extra day in there. And I would be thinking of everything I could to like possibly tell you you're wrong and that I didn't do this. So I just feel like, and so I feel like he keeps letting this get extended. I almost feel like if you were innocent, wouldn't you just want your day in court so that you could get found not guilty and go home?
Well, that's what he said, right? He said that he was excited to be exonerated. He couldn't wait for it. Now it seems like all he can do is wait.
Don't you have to be convicted to be exonerated? I thought that was weird that he said that, and he didn't say that I can't wait until people see that I didn't do this or I'm not guilty. The fact that he used the word exonerated, especially because he's in criminal justice, I felt like you have to be convicted to be exonerated. Or maybe I'm just thinking too much into what he was saying, but that's how I don't know.
He seems to be the kind of guy that likes to use big words. I wouldn't be surprised if he used the word in a manner that wasn't the appropriate way.
That's so funny. You're so right. That's exactly right. You're probably right. That's funny.
I've seen the way he writes and talks and things, and it seems like he's always trying to get over on people. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was trying to use that as a adjective of some sort and just used it in the wrong way.
That's funny.
Kel comes in with a $10 super chat, says, thanks for always bringing us the latest info. Great mods chat. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Well, we're hitting at the 8 o'clock mark. I know it's your birthday, and I know I'm going to be joining you on your channel. Tell everybody where they can find you real quick, and then we'll head over that way.
Okay, so I'm the minds behind true crime with Dr. Vona. I don't know if we could put the link in the chat just so people could click on it, because I don't know, but it's the minds, but there's two minds behind true crime. So just look for my picture on there. It's the one with Dr. Vona. Thank you guys for saying happy birthday. I appreciate all of your birthday wishes a lot.
If you guys go to the community post, I made a post earlier today, and I said I'm going to be here, and I sent in the link. You guys can click on that link. Heather just dropped it in as well. It'll be going on in about 5 minutes. Typically I hit an outro, but this time what I'm going to do, guys, warning label Nina made a song for me, so I'm going to play the song. We're going to drop out, but we're going to play the song, and then nobody's going to be on the screen, but for y'all's entertainment, guys, we'll see you guys in a few minutes on Dr. Vona's channel.
Thank you.
Hold on, that's I got to start it over.
of the night where the shadows collide. Drunk Turkey Show rides with truth as the guide. Daniel at the helm with the fire in his soul, leading the charge to make broken hearts whole. Drunk Turkey Show, where the